معكم تحت الكساء. فقال عليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بزعتي قد أذنت لك، فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ بي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومى بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وهامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبريل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبالها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد. فقال جبريل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبريل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى، يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبريل معنا تحت الكساء. فقال لي أبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وهفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي الثانية يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيه مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وكذا الله حاجته. فقال علي إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. رحم الله من أعد الفاتحة.
पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवात। मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा। निगाहे करम वारिसे मुस्तफ़ा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा। है मशहद में सहने शिफा आपका, मैं क्यों ना कहूँ उसको दारो शिफा। जहाँ आके पाते हैं ईसा शिफा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा। मेरे मौला दुनिया है सहमी हुई, है इस वक्त दुनिया पे मुश्किल घड़ी। जहाँ भर में फैली हुई है वबा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा। है हमशीर मासूम फातिमा, है वाजिब ज़माने पे उनकी सना। उसी ज़ात का आपको आस्ता, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा। मैं मुजरिम हूँ और आप अब्रे करम, मेरे सामने आपका है हरम। मैं जैसा भी हूँ गदा आपका, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा। थी हसरत की सालों से दिल में मेरे, गिरा दूंगा मैं आज दर पे तेरे। था जो अश्क पलकों पे अब तक रुका, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा। सना हो बयां आपकी जिस घड़ी, मुसलसल हो नज़रे करम आपकी। सवाली है ज़ाहिर भी बन के खड़ा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा। निगाहे करम वारिसे मुस्तफ़ा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा, मदद कीजिए या इमाम रज़ा। पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु।
The message is loud and clear. As part of the second term, the AV system has to receive priority. Better, let's set this up. Yeah, it's just heavy. Our resident Zakir Malim Dungarsi, our resident Alim Sheikh Bilal, but he's not here, hopefully he's listening to me online. My elders, brothers, sisters, Iman, Salamun Alaikum. On this occasion of the Wiladat of Shaykh Hussain, Imam Ali, and on behalf of Sijni management, I would like to wish you all Kushali Mubarak. And before I begin, we have some good news to share with all of you. Unfortunately, this is my third attempt at getting Muhammad Sifji here at the center, and every time I'm striking out. But today I'm going to ask his father-in-law, Firoz Uncle Mukhi, to please come forward. As you may all know, recently the family welcomed a brand new addition to their family, a baby boy, mashallah, son of Muhammad Sifji and Sister Fatima Mukhi. So please may I ask you all to give them a big salawat. I will ask our former president, Brother Shul Kalfan, to please come forward. And Raza Bhai Dungarsi, please to come forward as well and do us the honors. And Firoz Uncle, please come forward. This is a rich tradition that we have started. Any time a volunteer of the center has welcomed a new addition, we commemorate that on behalf of the community and give them good wishes. Par Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Par Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Awesome, Firoz Uncle. Thank you. Thank you, As you all are aware, we had our annual general meeting earlier this afternoon at our center, where our treasurers presented our accounts, and which was then followed by the election of the office bearers of our Jamaat. May I ask now the AV room to please put up the slide of the new administration on the screen. And all the names now, yes, it's a pretty compelling list, but as you can imagine, it takes a village to run the center. And I'm just going to quickly mention the names of the various office bearers. As you will notice, we have our chair lady, Sister Rehana Jafar, who's continuing in her role. She and her team have done an amazing job, as you all will agree. Our Vice President will continue to be Brother Muntazir Jamal. Our Joint Secretaries are Brother Sajid Raza, and of course our youngster Brother Amir Dirani, who at the present time is in Vancouver representing our Jamaat at the Nasimco meetings. I'm so proud of him. He is one of the youngest ever in the history of Jamaats affiliated with Nasimco to take that position and to represent a Jamaat at an official meeting like that. I'm very proud of him. And of course, we have our treasurer, Brother Mustafa Allu, who's done an amazing job. And now, one news to share with you, Brother Muhammad Hassan Allu has taken a hiatus. He said, Hussain Bana is getting a lot from me. But I will spare the other good news about him that we will share with you shortly in a few months. And then you will all understand why he's giving up this one particular role. But he's agreed to stay with us. And I've asked the trustees to allow me, and the community to allow me, 3 months, and I will inshallah find a treasurer to take his spot. With that said, we have Brother Fidos Mukhi, Fidos Mukaddam, who will continue his role as head Mukhi. And then we have, I will never forget that one. And then we have our assistant Mukhi, Brother Muhammad Habib, who will continue. But we are also bringing in Fayaz Dewji, who will also be serving as an assistant to Brother Firdaus. We have our Vice Chair Lady, Sister Habiba Jaxi, along with Sister Fatima Kalfan. And then Sister Shamila Mukaddam, Firdaus, his wife, she will continue in her role as Ladies Secretary, along with Sister Fatima Mukhi. Our treasurers, Sister Sheila Darcy and Sister Femina Jivraj, will continue in their roles. And then, of course, our committee members are made up of Sister Femida Mamedali, as you all know. She's our IB chair. She does just amazing work. At the moment, she's also in Vancouver attending the SIL conference, which, as you all know, is dedicated to Islamic learning for our children, and which then, of course, as IB chair for the madrasa, she then shares all of that with our madrasa teachers. A very, very important aspect of our madrasa. And she does an amazing job, and she also does the Alamdar Fund. So when you have people in need, she vets out the individual before we move forward and help out people. So she does a great job. And then we have Dr. Arif Darcy. Of course, as you all know, we need a medical professional in the team, and he's kindly agreed to assist us in his role. Brother Sajjad Juma, my childhood friend, he's now with us as an official committee member, along with Muhammad Sheikh. All of you know the work Muhammad Sheikh has done in terms of the security of our center. He has absolutely done an amazing job protecting our children in terms of the madrasa with the private security that is provided to our children and our teachers. In addition to our big nights when there's a lot of people, we also arrange private security. So Muhammad Sheikh has done an amazing job there. He works very closely with Ali Sheikh in that department. Then we have Muhammad Shivji. I'm so happy, the proud dad, the proud you dad, he has kindly agreed to join our committee. What you're going to see is a trend. We are bringing more and more youngsters, the future leaders, into the team so they can learn firsthand of how the Jamaat functions. Also, of course, Brother Firoz Mukhi as nominated member, Brother Hussain Darcy in his role as Kafan Dafan, but also as a nominated member. And to round off, Brother Sajjad Juma now moves from here to an official committee member. Can I ask you all, please, to give them a loud salawat? Salli Allah. I'm really, really proud of this team. We have a big agenda up ahead, as you all know, and I'm fully committed, and also committed in the sense that I know I have the right team that inshallah will go and deliver in terms of what we have set out to do. So with that said, the last 2 years were about adjusting to running our center on a full-time basis. After COVID and the record number of programs being hosted at Al-Mahdi Center, the team did a wonderful job catering to the needs of our elderly and the young. Working closely with our resident Alim and our resident Zakir, events throughout the year were well planned and executed. Months of Mahe Muharram and Mahe Ramadan saw record attendances, including congregants coming from different communities in large numbers. And we even saw in the census we carried out during one night in Mahe Muharram of attendees surpassing 1,100 people in this center. And you wouldn't even have known it. We saw in the last 2 years probably the largest number of youths getting involved in many ways in terms of volunteering their time at Al-Mahdi Center, and this was so apparent during the holy nights of Mahe Muharram and Mahe Ramadan. But I must say that our youngsters are involved year-round. Just look at the kitchen, the AV room, and all the behind the scenes with the announcements and the banners, flyers, etc. And this is what I'm most thankful for. And as we speak of youths, our own Joint Secretary, like I mentioned, Ahmed Dirani, is representing the administration in Vancouver at the Nasimco meetings taking place this weekend, and where he will also be voting on behalf of our community on various motions. He is probably the youngest delegate at the meetings. I'm so proud of him and of all the up-and-coming youths who will undoubtedly be the future leaders of our community. Programs for the elderly, which the ladies team does a phenomenal job with, and of course we now have a former elderly group which Brother Inayat and Sister Gulzar Megji handle, and works very closely with the administration to keep our retirees engaged, and we are just getting started. The best is yet to come from this group. Programming in the past 2 years also included career days and healthcare, and which continue to attract large numbers every year. And I know the team involved in putting together these events will continue to push the envelope and bring more and more creativity for the betterment of our community members. One important area that as a team we learned was managing our finances. Having a record number of programs to go with record number of congregants, and for a facility of this size, there are costs which also includes providing security for our community. And as we saw in our accounts presented earlier today, and with a lot of thanks to all of you who have been keeping up with your membership dues, to go with our sponsors who come through during Ramadan and Muharram, we have turned around a deficit in the year past to a healthy surplus to the tune of $70,000. Per Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. And it goes without say, our treasures on both the gents and the ladies' sides deserve our most sincere thanks. And lastly, when this team when the first team took over a couple of years ago, I'd mentioned two things. We had to move the needle on our properties at Woodside and Jericho in terms of finding the ultimate way forward and resolving Tenancy B, associated with the Al-Mahdi Center, for which we have a conditional approval from the town of Oyster Bay to remain open. Alhamdulillah. You were all given an update on Woodside and Jericho in our meeting to go with earlier today, to go exactly with what we are in terms of progressing toward hopefully obtaining a permit to move forward with the construction at our center, and which will resolve Tenancy B. And while the process toward getting the official permit from town of Oyster Bay continues, both our Vice President Muntazir Jamal and I will be attending the World Federation meetings taking place in London this coming weekend. We have enlisted the support of both Nasimco and the World Federation, and will be granted time at the World Federation meetings to present our project. Our aim is to obtain Khum's Ijaza, which in turn will help us tremendously as we get into fundraising. We also intend to get commitments from well-wishers while we are there. And Alhamdulillah, I already have some well-wishers who have already reached out and are looking forward to meeting me in London. This is so important, and I ask you all to make dua for us. I'm both humbled and grateful for the trust bestowed upon you on my team. These are all good people who don't take this trust lightly. And from a personal standpoint, know that the position I hold is sacred to me. It has a weight on my shoulders that reminds me every day and every night that we're in a crucial moment in our New York Jamaat's history, and that we must find the final solution to our properties, which if not dealt with, will result in a stiff price to be paid by our children. And we will not let that happen. And the renovation of Al-Mahdi Center is crucial to not only meet the needs of our community, but most importantly, to secure the future of our children. And for that, I will not rest until we see through it for as long as I'm breathing. I only ask for your du'as, for my team, and for me. And I want to thank my wife. I want to thank my wife, who's my backbone, and has given me all the support and encouragement while she holds the fort at home. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. And before I conclude, and as all of you know, our youths are organizing a mega volleyball tournament next weekend. And I ask all of you gathered here today, and just yesterday I was with Sheikh Bilal, and we addressed them, and we encouraged them, but there's one thing I must say. It has been long overdue that our youths bring the championship trophy to New York. And all of you know me, the competitor that I am on the sports field. And you all know me when you've seen me play. I'm going to ask each and every one member of our community, young and old, to be at the volleyball ground and encourage our youngsters. They need you. It is now time for them to deliver. And they are ready. Trust me, they are ready. But please do not let me down. And when I ask the champ, because I'm actually going to miss this tournament because I have to be in London. So all of you will represent me on the sideline and cheer them on. And for that, there's a promise I'm holding you to. For Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, salawat. Once again, our thanks for the trust you have placed in us, and we look forward to serving our Imam and his Ummah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. For Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, salawat. Sheikh Bilal? Oh, I'm sitting. Oh, someone's coming. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Mukhi Sahib. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي الحمد لله رب العالمين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو والملائكة وأولو العلم قائمون بالقسط لا إله إلا هو العزيز الحكيم. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And your loudest salawat for ta'jeel faraj sahib al-asr wa zaman. My congratulations to everyone on the celebration of tonight, the 11th of Dhul Qa'dah, the celebration of the Wiladat of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Radhi bil-Qadr wal-Qada. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. The verse we begin our discussion with tonight refers to Surah Al Imran, the 18th verse, in which Allah says that Allah Himself is the one who bears witness, La ilaha illahu, and so do the angels and those who are possessors of knowledge, those who are ulul ilm. Today's wiladat is not just the one who is a possessor of knowledge, but is one who is referred to as Alim Ali Muhammad, the scholar of Ali Muhammad. This title of our 8th Imam was something that is in a narration from his father, that close to the end of his life, our 7th Imam gathered all of his children and gave them instruction. And he said to them, I advise all of you, my children, to listen to Ali ibn Musa, because he is Alim Ali Muhammad. He is the scholar of Ali Muhammad. And he is the one that you should ask about your faith and record anything that he teaches you. Imam Musa Qasim continues, he says, and I am saying this to you because I heard my father, Imam Jafar as-Sadiq, say to me that, O Musa, in your children, fi sulbika alime Ali Muhammad, in your children is the alim of Ali Muhammad, and I wish that I had the opportunity to meet him, and his name will be the same name as Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he will be the scholar of this nation. This title of our 8th Imam, Alim Ali Muhammad, is one of the unique titles of his that sometimes gets overlooked when we look at the history of the Imam. But there are certain events in the life of the Imam that give us the instruction of the importance of this title and the fact that he earned this title from amongst all of the other A'immah. When we look at the titles of the Ahlul Bayt, many times the titles of the Ahlul Bayt are a reflection of the conditions through which and the unique aspect of guidance that they presented. We see, for example, our 4th Imam, through his process of teaching through dua and the beauty of supplication and ibadah, he earned the title, or he was known by the title of Zainul Abidin, the adornment of the worshippers. When we look at, for example, our 5th Imam, by the fact that he was someone who brought knowledge back into humanity and society at that time, he was known as Baqiru ilmin Nabiyyin, the one who splits apart and brings to the source of the sources of knowledge. Our 6th Imam, for the extensiveness of his teaching, that even his enemies had to admit that we may not agree with this man, but he speaks nothing but the truth, and whatever he has brought in terms of knowledge, there is no questioning of his knowledge. Amongst all of these and the others, when we see Imam Jawad, when we see Imam al-Hadi, we see the attributes that they brought about. But this attribute that is assigned by the Ahlul Bayt of our 8th Imam is one of the most important elements, and there are 3 ways of analyzing why he was given this title. And we'll spend a few minutes together tonight to discuss this attribute of our Imam, and inshallah through the wasila of knowing and having ma'rifat of him, we'll ask for inshallah his shifa'ah in dunya and in akhirah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This title of Alim Ali Muhammad and the idea that he is the scholar of Ali Muhammad is one of the elements that is often overlooked in the fact that in the history of Shi'at, in the dawr of the 11 Imams that has passed, there are 3 periods of education that we went through. The first of these periods was the period of Amir al-Mu'mineen, that when he would teach, that he presented knowledge and gave us information. A flash of that knowledge is what we look at in Nahj al-Balagha. That when you read the words of Nahj al-Balagha, and many times you ponder over how could this be the extent of the knowledge that was revealed. Yet that dawr that introduced us to the knowledge and extrapolated the knowledge of the Holy Prophet for us was a limited time in which the extent of that knowledge was not revealed to us entirely. Hence Imam Ali would say, in my chest there is a khazan, there is this treasure trove of knowledge that if I was to be able to give to you, yet there is no one to receive it from me. That was the first time that we received the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt, and the knowledge of Nabuwwat was given to us and extrapolated and explained to us. The second of these times was in the time of those that are known as As-Sadiqain or Al-Baqirain, the time of our 5th and 6th Imam, in which we found that people had been separated from the source of the traditions of the Holy Prophet. Remember something, history in the time of our 5th and 6th Imam was such that all those who had spent time in the company of our Holy Prophet and those who are known as the Tabi'een that followed them had left this world. And the idea of now, how do we determine what does Islam want from us? How do we follow Islam correctly? How do we implement the teachings of Islam in our life? Was something that was difficult to do. And it was that people didn't have a source of guidance. So hence these 2 Imams opened the second dawr of teaching in the history of Islam. And they presented hadith on top of hadith and education upon education, and educated the masses of how to know, 1, what the Prophet said, and 2, how it applies in their life, and how to ensure that life is lived Islamically, even if they couldn't see the Messenger of Allah, that his teachings would continue to be perpetuated amongst humanity. The third realm of knowledge that was shared with us is the dawr of this 8th Imam. And in the time of the 8th Imam, it was one of those things that he went through and he refined the knowledge and information that humanity possessed, and gave us the tools that if Islam persists today and there is some truth in Islam, it is by the barakat of the teaching of Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha alayhi salam. This dawr of the teaching of the Imam is a dawr that takes over 30 years of the life of the Imam. When we look at the history and the tariq of our 8th Imam, the first point is how long did he teach and how many people narrated from him. There are in narrations, in books of narration that talk about one of the ways that you know that someone was a teacher, was an alim, was a teacher, is the impact of his education that was left behind. Sharif Baqir Qarashi, who has written a biography of each of the Ma'asumeen in 14 volumes, and it is one of the most extensive and elaborate biographies of each of these 14 personalities, spends the time to say that there are over 350 narrators who narrated hadith from our 8th Imam. To say that there are 350 people whose word was then taken by society and spread upon the teachings of the Imam would indicate, and was a source of indication throughout history, to know the validity, the strength, and the extensiveness of the teaching potential that one possessed. And 350 people is not a small number who would narrate the teachings of the Imam. Yet even this number falls short, where we see other of those who kept track of this information say that there are over 830 people who narrate hadith directly from Imam Ridha, which shows us that the depth of teaching that he spent and the education that he gave was incredibly extensive, and that his teachings are present in every book and every source of knowledge that we possess. When we look to see these sources of knowledge, we can see that some of these traditions, for example, in one of the most famous books that we possess, is one that was written by Sheikh Saduq, which is known as Uyun al-Akhbar al-Ridha, which is a 2-volume book written by Sheikh Saduq that has many hundreds of hadith translated directly and sourced from our 8th Imam. But this Uyun al-Akhbar al-Ridha means the essence, the source, the spring from which the traditions of Imam Ridha came. That if you were to look at all of the teachings of Imam Ridha and say the most important or the most significant that I should ensure that I read, that would be the source that's known as Uyun al-Akhbar, that those that are the fundamentals that have to be studied. Outside of this, many ulama have collected the reading, the hadith of our Imam, to the extent where one of our ulama who spent his life collecting the hadith by each Imam when he categorizes all of the hadith from Imam Ridha, he writes a book of 8 volumes of hadith. One of the important points of this, mentioning this, is that in this day and age, whether we know Arabic or not, the narrations of Ahlul Bayt are available to us. We have the ability to interact with them should we choose to. Historically, it was not possible other than the mimbar for us to get access to the ahadith because it wasn't in our language. But now with the availability and the work that's being done to present knowledge in every language that's available, including ours, each of us has the responsibility to take the time that the way that we spend time with the Quran, the next thing that we need to invest in is the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt, the qawl of the Imam. When it comes to, for example, the difference between these two, we say that the Quran is something qat'iyat as-sudur dhanniyat ad-dalala, meaning that I can be sure that the Quran is exactly as Allah revealed it. But I always have a doubt to understand exactly what it is that Allah meant. And hadith is something that we come to and we say dhanniyat as-sudur wa qat'iyat ad-dalala. That hadith is something that I can have a doubt that did the Imam actually say this? Was this hadith narrated correctly, that it reached me the way it was intended to at this point in time? But if I have a doubt about its tradition, that the tradition reached me correctly, I am qat'iyat ad-dalala. I am certain of what the Imam said. That I have the ability to understand what the Imam is talking about. One of the important things in this time is that when we talk about these hadith, we talk about these traditions, how many of us have spent time? How many of us know a few of the traditions of Ahlul Bayt by each of the Imams? That we should know about them and know what our Imam has said. To be able to quote that Imam that I love, that Imam whose shifa'ah I want, have I absorbed his words? Have I established them in my character? Hence this becomes an important aspect of the idea that we can talk about the quantity of narrators, we can talk about the dearth of hadith. The greatest amount of hadith that we have received is from the time of our 5th and 6th Imam, which is very true. There is one Zurara who narrates from our 5th and 6th Imam. Do you know how many hadith he narrates from them? Over 30,000 hadith, one man. How many of us have read them? How many of us have sequestered that knowledge away from us, that this is something that when I hear it, I'll know it? It's our responsibility to build that relationship, to recognize and to follow those teachings and to implement them. When we do talab al-shifa', when we ask for the guidance, when we ask for the support, when we ask for the intercession of these A'imma alayhim as-salam, how well do we know them? Have we heard their words? Have we followed their teachings? Have we implemented? Can we differentiate between their sayings? These are one of the important aspects that when we're talking about that this is Alim Ali Muhammad, this is the scholar of Ali Muhammad. How many of us know the words of the scholar of Ali Muhammad? How many of us have spent that time? It's one of the important elements that we have, which brings us to the second point, his life and teaching. When we discuss, for example, his time in Tus and Marv, that time that the Imam spends outside of the city of Medina is only a period of 3 years of his life. The Imam's life in its entirety is a period of 55 years. And his Imamate lasts for a period of 20 years and begins at the age of 35. But the teaching of the Imam, the hadith tell us that he began teaching when he was less than the age of 20. That they describe and they say that in the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that's when people would come to sit and to learn and to educate themselves, when they would come upon a mas'ala or a question that no one could answer, they would go to Ali ibn Musa, and he was a young man of less than 20 years of age. The Imam began his process of teaching at less than 20 years of age. And he proceeds to teach until the age of about either 52 in the city of Medina, or depending upon when you know of his birth to be, it could be a period of 32 years or 29 years that he spends teaching in this environment of Masjid al-Nabawi and educating the people about the religion of Islam. In this time, we see the Imam's life go through 3 of the Khulafa. One is Harun, the one who killed his father. Then there is Amin, and there is Ma'mun. When Harun is in charge of the Khilafat after the Shahadat of Imam Musa, Imam Ridha steps up and takes the position of Imamat and continues his process of teaching that he had been doing for over 10 years at this point in time. The people get worried. They say, Yabna Rasulullah, this one who has killed your father, fear for your life. Do not be so public with this that you are doing. Our Imam himself replies, he says, in the time of my forefather Rasulullah, those who are the enemies of Islam. They threatened the Holy Prophet, and our Prophet replied, I am not the Prophet of Allah if they can touch one hair on my head. I, Ali ibn Musa, tell you, I am not your Imam if this Harun can touch one hair on my head. And the Imam continued fearlessly his process of teaching in the city of Medina. Through the time period of Amin, which lasted, so Harun's time period lasted 10 years. Amin's time period lasted for 15 years. Imam continued his teaching. And in the final 5 years, after the initial 2 years of the time of Ma'mun, the Imam was moved from the city of Medina to the city of Marv, or Tus, Khurasan as we know it as well. This entire time period of his life, which he spends, let's assume he begins his teaching at 20, though the hadith tells us he was even younger than 20. Let's assume 20. 55 is his Shahadat, 3 years he's in Tus. That entire period of 32 years, the Imam spends his time educating and teaching this society about Islam. To the extent where even the 3 years that he is in the city of Khurasan, that is the well-known time period, even that time period is one that is associated with teaching and knowledge. Remember, when our Imam was made, the Wali al-Ahad, when he was made the successor of the Khalifa, he refused any political involvement or to appoint any governmental officials. His role in the court was that of one of a teacher. When we look and we see that the Imam teaches people the characteristics, the attribute of reciting poetry about Imam Hussain, the famous poetry of Da'b al-Khazai, that's recited in the courts of the Khalifa. Or we take a look and we see how the Khalifa forced the Imam to have debates with people. Our Imam has a total of 19 debates that take place in his life, many of which take place in those 3 years. From amongst the famous debates that he has is where the heads of every school of thought and ideology were brought to debate the Imam to somehow prove that he was wrong. They were the heads of the Catholic Church. They were the heads of the Jewish rabbis and the priesthood of the Jewish school of thought. The Zoroastrians, the Sabians, the philosophers, the atheists, all came and challenged our Imam. One of the opinions that he is known as Alim Ali Muhammad is that he is the one who most publicly presented the teachings of the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt to the entirety of the world. That maybe it is the world's recognition of the knowledge of Ali Muhammad that was presented by Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha in that time. So meaning this title, Alim Ali Muhammad, is one that is reflective of his teaching of the majority of his life. And it is one of the benefits that we should seek from this Imam. The third area that we see in this conversation is the idea of the context of what it is that the Imam taught. While it's true that the teaching of the Imam extended across all fields of scientific study, one of the focal points of the teachings of the Imam was correcting the hadith of the Holy Prophet for the Ummah. Let me explain what that means. Islam as a whole spent a long period of time where it was not allowed to transmit or to record the hadith of our Prophet. The second Khalifa in his time instituted a law that forbade people from recording or transmitting the hadith of the Prophet. This law of his continued until the year roughly 99 after Hijrah. For over 75, 80 years, 88 years, no one was allowed to transmit the hadith of the Prophet. In the year 99, when the Khulafa came to Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who was one of the Banu Umayyah, but he was someone who was kind-hearted towards the Ahlul Bayt and wanted to correct the mistakes of the Ummah, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz came forward and he says the fact that no tradition of the Prophet can be recorded and is saved in our community is a bad thing. And he began the process of the writing of the traditions of the Holy Prophet. Now in the year 99, all the companions of the Prophet had died. Even the Tabi'een, those who had spent time with these companions, most of them were gone. They were done. So hence the process of writing the hadith of the Prophet that happened beginning in the year 99 after Hijrah was people saying what they had heard from somebody else. Thus the hadith of the Holy Prophet were something that were lost and confused to society. Our eighth Imam is the one who went and corrected these teachings and clarified the teachings and the dearth of knowledge that had been collected so that people could understand it. Shall I give you a couple of examples? If you stay awake, I'll give you 3, but if you don't, I'll give you 2. Alright? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad. One of the companions of the 8th Imam comes to me and he says, Ibn Rasulullah, there's a hadith of the Holy Prophet that confuses me. I don't understand it. He says, ask me and I'll tell you. He says, Ibn Rasulullah, I have heard the hadith that our Holy Prophet has said that Allah comes down to the lowest heaven and He asks in the end of the night on every night and the first part of the night on Thursday night, if there is anyone seeking forgiveness, that Allah will forgive him. How is that possible? Imam Ridha says, my curse on the one who removes things and destroys the hadith of the Prophet. He says, this hadith, they have narrated it incorrectly. And he explains, he says, this hadith truly says that Allah has appointed an angel that comes down to the lowest level of the heavens every single night. And that this angel's responsibility is to call out at the end of the night that is there anyone who wants the forgiveness of Allah? Is there anyone who is asking from Allah? Let Allah grant his desire. And on Thursday nights, this angel comes down in the first part of the night and makes the same call. 2 points. One is he points out and he says, those who incorrectly narrate this hadith have violated the rights of Allah and have committed kufr. That they imagine that Allah has a physical body, that Allah can be in the highest heaven and then come to the lowest heaven, and that if Allah is in this heaven, He's not in that heaven, and that Allah comes down, na'uzubillah. This is not possible. Allah is beyond the body. Allah has no jism, la makan. Then how could it be that He moves from one place to another? Hence the correctness of the hadith, the Imam explains, to understand it correctly, is that Allah has appointed a malik, an angel, that He sends from the highest of the heavens to collect the requests of those who want. And the Imam's explanation of this is to say that that last part of that night, that time before Fajr, is one of the most important times for the mu'min. One, it is the most mustahab time to recite Salat al-Layl. The other is that's the time that when the world is busy in their sleep, that the abd, the servant of Allah, is busy communicating with Allah, and Allah dedicates special attention to that person in that time. Therefore, don't miss that time. The same is true, as the Imam explains, of Thursday night. That Thursday night, in the beginning of that night, the Malik, the angel, comes and he calls out and he says, is there anyone who wants from Allah? And the Imam explains that those who are seeking forgiveness are certainly successful, and those who are neglectful and careless are the ones who are the losers and who have missed out on this opportunity. Therefore, the Imam, one, clarifies this situation and explains to us, as well as points out the severity of the value, that those of you who are mu'mineen, don't miss these opportunities. Allah, He emphasizes, He's correcting this hadith, is telling you the correctness of this opportunity, that don't miss this opportunity. The second of these ahadith, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A man comes and he says, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, there's a hadith of the Holy Prophet that confuses me. Imam says, ask me and I will explain to you. The man says, I have heard a hadith that the Holy Prophet said that Allah has created man in his form. How is that possible? If man is created in the form of God, man has hands, Allah does not have hands. Man has face, does that mean Allah has face? Man has body, man has aura, man has all these parts. Then does that mean that if the Holy Prophet is saying Allah has created man in his form, that this means that man and Allah share the same form? You see something similar like this in some of the other religions and traditions as well. The Imam again replies, he says, they have again done a disservice and they have hidden a part of the truth of this hadith from you. Now, did they hide it intentionally? It's possible. Or the reality of the fact that such a large gap was made between when our Prophet left this world and it was when his hadith were written, that people had made mistakes and lost the essence and saved only parts of the statements. The Imam explains, and he says, the first part of this hadith refers to the fact that our Prophet came upon 2 men who were fighting. And when they were fighting, one of them said to the other, they were arguing, one said to the other, may Allah make your face ugly and anyone who looks like you. وَمَنْ شَبَّهَ ذَلِكَ. Hearing this, our Prophet replied and he said, don't say such a thing to him. Because Allah has fashioned his face, has fashioned the face of Adam like him. They removed the first half, that there were two men cursing each other, and one said, "Kabbaha wajjak," that may Allah make your face ugly, and "Waman shabbaha dhalik," and one who looks like you as well. And that the reply of the Prophet was, don't say this about another human being. Don't curse the face of another human being, because his face resembles the face of Adam, resembles the face of Ibrahim, resembles the face of Musa, resembles the face of Isa. When you say, may Allah curse and make your face ugly and anyone who looks like you are cursing the Anbiya along with him. And that this is a misstatement, and don't do such an action. That the hadith that the people had possessed was one that was incomplete. The statement that yes, Allah fashioned the face of Adam like him, the him in that statement was not referring to Allah, was referring to the man who was cursed, as saying that anyone who looks like you, may he also be ugly and accursed as well. In this way, people had misinterpreted, and imagine now that Allah resembled a physical appearance. They had misconstrued the hadith of our Prophet and miseducated the people, and our Prophet his hadith was fixed for humanity to follow correctly, which is why Alim Ali Muhammad, the scholar of Ali Muhammad, was the one who refined the knowledge present in humanity to preserve that message among society. Shall I give you one more? Sallu ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. One of the most famous hadith of our 8th Imam is the hadith that the Imam recites in a city of Nisapur. And this is known as Silsilat al-Dhahab, the golden chain. This hadith of golden chain is a very famous hadith. And it is narrated both by Shia and Sunni sources. In Sunni books, it's written that this hadith has been narrated and was written by 20,000 people when Imam Ridha said it. You know how many our books write? 4,000. 4,000 people wrote this hadith. Yeah, Ahl-Sunnah write that 20,000 people wrote this hadith. This hadith within itself has a very important teaching within it. That when our Imam is traveling from the city of Medina to the city of Khurasan, he passes through a place of Nisapur, and the ulama of Rijal and Hadith come out, and they bring many people with them to meet the grandson of the Prophet. The event itself is very thorough and detailed, but what they do is they ask a very interesting question. And it is a question that itself shows the problem of the knowledge that people possessed of the time. They came and they said, "O grandson of the Prophet, by the rights of your pure forefathers," these are Ahl Sunnah, they're not Shia. "By the rights of your pure forefathers, narrate a hadith to us that you have heard from your forefathers from the Prophet." That's the mistake. One of the things that society at large had lost was the understanding of the ma'rifah of the scholarship of Ahlul Bayt. The Ahlul Bayt were those that anything that they said was from the Prophet. You didn't have to ask them to narrate something from the Prophet. Whatever that they would say was exactly what the Prophet wanted and nothing different. So why the Ahlul Bayt and the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt, when we go back to the chain and come to the Imam, that the Imam said this, we don't have to question that if the Imam said this, then what did the Prophet say? Because anything that the Imam says is the teaching of the Prophet. This was something that was well established in the time of our 5th Imam, when he came forward and he says, whatever I say to you is what the Prophet has said. If I say it to you, then know that my father has said it, that his father has said it, that Amir al-Mu'mineen has said it, that Rasulullah has said it. And that there is no gap in this chain. But those people of that time had no ma'rifah of understanding the word of the Imam. Hence the Imam is now forced to explain to them what his word means. And he says, "Haddathani abi, wa haddathahu abuh." That he says, I have heard from my father, who heard from his 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 father Imam Ali, who heard from Rasulullah, who heard from Jibra'il, who heard from Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. And he explains that the word of the Imam, wherever you hear it, is that word that has been divinely guided to guide humanity. Therefore, when we read a hadith from an Imam, we don't question the fact that did the Rasulullah's statement agree or disagree. Rather, it was the teaching of Rasulullah and nothing more than that that the Imam would explain himself. And hence the Imam, after giving this chain of narration and showing that when I narrate something to you, it comes from the Prophet, it comes from Jibreel, it comes from Allah, he explains and he says, Allah has said, La ilaha illallah husni, wa man dakhala husni, amana adhabi. He explains and he says that La ilaha illallah is the fort of Allah, and one who enters the fort of Allah is protected from the punishment of Allah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This part of the hadith every Muslim agrees upon. What differentiates and says is that the Shia narration of this hadith comes forward and says that after the Imam completed this, he waited for a moment and then continued, بِشَرْطِهَا وَشُرُوطِهَا وَأَنَا مِن شُرُوطِهَا. That this statement that whoever believes in La ilaha illallah has entered the fort of Allah and received His protection and will be saved from the fire of hell. This one who believes in the statement by its conditions is the one who will be saved from that fire of hell, and I am from amongst the conditions of La ilaha illallah. The need to extrapolate and explain this statement is not necessary, because we know for a fact that simply saying La ilaha illallah without fulfilling the commands of Allah does not save someone from the day of judgment, does not save someone from punishment. Rather, one who enacts La ilaha illallah in their life, follows the commands of Allah, enacts the teachings of Allah in their life, is the one who then receives the protection of Allah and the security of Allah. And this was the aspect of how we saw the impact of Alim Ali Muhammad. The benefit and the beauty of this Alim Ali Muhammad is the fact that we see even our Prophet narrated traditions that a part of me will be buried in Khurasan, and one who visits him is like one who visited me. One who goes to his ziyarat, his reward will be the equivalent of his, as if he did 70 Hajj or 70,000 Hajj with me. Hence the superiority of this scholar of Ali Muhammad, his teachings for us, and for us to know this laqab of the Imam, to be tied to it and to understand the greatness of the impact that he has had in our life. May Allah entitle us to his shifa' in dunya and akhirah. ندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم. We raise our hands in dua. Ya Allah, 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 Ya Allah. Ya Mahmud بحق محمد, Ya أعلى بحق علي, Ya فاطر السماوات بحق فاطمة, Ya محسن بحق الحسن, Ya قديم الإحسان بحق الحسين. Oh Allah, accept this small ibadah from us. Ya Allah, forgive our sins and cover our flaws. Ya Allah, by the rights of Imam al-Ridha, Radhi bil-Qadri wal-Qadha, fulfill our hajat. Ya Allah, those amongst our families, our community, the mu'mineen who are suffering through sickness and disease, Ya Allah, give shafa'at to the mu'mineen wherever they are. Oh Allah, there are those who are suffering through difficulty and insecurity. Ya Allah, give aman to the mu'mineen and muslimeen wherever they are in this world. Oh Allah, keep our children on the upright path of Islam. Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of Sahibul Zaman. Make us, our families, our children, our generations from the supporters of Sahibul Zaman. Entitle us to the ziyarat of Abu Abdullah in this world and his shifa in the hereafter. And entitle us to the ziyarat of Imam al-Ridha and his shifa as well. 1 Surah Fatiha, 3 times Surah Ikhlas, لأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين إمام المتقين. السلام عليك يا سيدتنا مولاتنا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا أبا حسن المجتبى ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك وعلى أخيك أبي الفضل العباس وعلى أختك الحوراء زينب وعلى 9 المعصومين من بنيك علي بن الحسين زين العابدين ومحمد بن علي الباقر وجعفر بن محمد الصادق وموسى بن جعفر القاظم وعلي بن موسى الرضا ومحمد بن تكي الجواد وعلي بن محمد الهادي والحسن بن علي العسكري والهجة القائم المهدي المنتظر. السلام عليك يا شهداء الكربلاء جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
صلوات. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد